Hidden truth. The musty scent of the auction house basement clung to Michael Bennett's nostrils as he sifted through stacks of forgotten canvases. Most were worthless, amateur landscapes and faded still lifes destined for thrift store walls. But as a struggling art restorer 3 months behind on rent, he couldn't afford to be selective. 10 minutes till closing, folks, called the auctioneer, already counting the day's meager proceeds. Michael lifted another canvas from the stack, wiping dust from its surface with his sleeve. A Civil War battle scene. Not particularly well executed, but something in the brushwork caught his trained eye. The artist had captured a curious detail amid the chaos of the battlefield. Several soldiers from opposing sides appeared to be looking at each other rather than fighting, an unusual choice for patriotic war art. "How much for this one?" Michael asked, holding it up. The auctioneer barely glanced over. $75. It's been here for months." Michael hesitated. $75 was grocery money for the week, but his instincts rarely led him astray. "I'll take it," he said, counting out crumpled bills from his wallet. In his cramped apartment that doubled as a studio, Michael examined his purchase under the bright work lamp. The painting was in poor condition, cracked varnish, small tears, and water damage along one edge. Amateur work, likely painted in the 1870s or 1880s by someone claiming to depict a battle they'd witnessed. The art market was flooded with such pieces. Still, there was something compelling about it. The composition showed Union and Confederate troops engaged at a river crossing, but the artist had painted several figures with an unusual level of detail amid the generic battle chaos. "Let's see what you're hiding," Michael murmured, gently testing the canvas tension. Over the next few days, between paid restoration jobs, Michael began the careful process of cleaning the painting. As layers of grime dissolved under his careful ministrations, colors brightened and details emerged. His initial assessment confirmed the artist had focused unusual attention on a group of soldiers from both armies who seemed to be engaged in something other than combat. While reinforcing a tear along the edge, Michael noticed the canvas had separated slightly from its stretcher. Carefully turning it over, he examined the deteriorating backing. Something wasn't right. The texture seemed uneven beneath his fingers. Using a small mirror and flashlight, he peered into the narrow space between canvas and wooden frame. There appeared to be something tucked inside. Heart quickening, Michael recalled stories of valuable items hidden in artwork during wartime. Working with painstaking precision, he carefully loosened one edge of the canvas from its stretcher. His breath caught as yellowed paper came into view. Not currency, but what appeared to be a letter deliberately sewn into the backing. With surgical tools normally used for paint removal, Michael extracted the document, laying it gently on his work table. The paper was fragile but intact, preserved within the painting's sealed environment for over a century. The handwriting was faded but legible, dated April 12, 1863. To those who seek truth in history's shadow, if you have found this letter, then perhaps time has rendered it safe to reveal what hundreds of us took blood oaths to conceal. I write not as a Union soldier, nor as a Confederate, but as a man who has seen enough death to last 1,000 lifetimes. The battle depicted herein never occurred as shown. Rather, it conceals the location where 243 men from both armies planned to lay down arms and desert together on April 16, 1863. Sons, brothers and fathers who recognized the futility of our mutual slaughter and chose humanity over continued bloodshed. We were betrayed. A general with stars on his shoulders, whose name I dare not commit even to this hidden record, discovered our plan. Instead of courts-martial, he ordered a secret execution to prevent the spread of our disease of desertion, as he called it. This painting marks the location of our planned meeting and the unmarked graves of those who arrived early. The artist was one of us who survived by chance of late arrival. May God forgive what men cannot. Sergeant Thomas Merritt, 7th Pennsylvania Reserves. Michael sat back, stunned. If authentic, this was an extraordinary historical document, evidence of a coordinated desertion plot across enemy lines, summarily punished and then erased from history. With trembling fingers he turned the letter over. On the back was a hand-drawn map with landmarks carefully noted and a series of names, presumably the men who had died. The final line read, "The full account is hidden where the river bends beneath the general's watchful eye." The telephone's shrill ring broke his trance. Michael answered distractedly. "Mr. Bennett, this is Eleanor Wright from the Historical Society. I understand you purchased a Civil War painting at the Garfield auction." Michael's grip tightened on the receiver. "How did you know that?" "Small town," she replied. "I've been tracking Civil War artifacts for my research. Would it be possible for me to see it?" Michael glanced at the letter lying exposed on his table. "It's in poor condition. I've just begun restoration. That's precisely why I'm calling. I'm not just a historian. I specialize in authentication of Civil War documents. Perhaps we could help each other." Michael hesitated, instinctively protective of his discovery. "Maybe next week, when I've stabilized it?" "Of course," Dr. Wright replied, though something in her tone suggested urgency. "One more thing. Has the painting revealed anything unusual? Hidden inscriptions, for instance?" The question was too specific to be coincidental. Michael's unease deepened. "Nothing yet," he lied. "Just typical period work." After hanging up, Michael carefully photographed the letter and map, then secured the original in a waterproof document sleeve. The painting itself he returned to its stretcher, temporarily reattaching the canvas. That evening, he researched Sergeant Thomas Merritt of the 7th Pennsylvania Reserves, finding service records confirming his existence and his mysterious disappearance in April 1863, listed officially as presumed desertion. Michael looked again at the painting, seeing it with new eyes. Not just a mediocre battle scene, but a memorial and a message hidden in plain sight for over a century. The figures that had caught his attention weren't fighting. They were meeting in secret. The artist had documented a tragedy and concealed the evidence within the artwork itself. A sharp knock at his door startled him. Through the peephole, he saw a man in an expensive suit, unfamiliar and out of place in Michael's modest apartment building. "Mr. Bennett, my name is James Hollister. I represent a private collector who's very interested in your recent acquisition. May I come in?" Michael froze, hand on the doorknob. He hadn't told anyone except Dr. Wright about the painting, and he certainly hadn't mentioned it to any collectors. Someone else knew about the letter, and they had found him with remarkable speed. Buried evidence. "Mr. Bennett, I know you're home." Another sharp knock rattled the door. Michael remained frozen, mind racing. How had this man found him so quickly? And more importantly, how did he know about the painting? "I'm authorized to offer you $5,000, Hollister continued through the door. "Cash tonight, no questions asked." $5,000 was nearly 3 months' income for Michael, a lifeline for his struggling business, but the urgency of the offer only deepened his suspicion. "I'm working right now," Michael called back. "Leave your card and I'll call you tomorrow." A business card slid under his door. "The offer expires at midnight, Mr. Bennett," Hollister said before his footsteps retreated down the hallway. Michael examined the card. James Hollister, Acquisitions Specialist, with a phone number but no company name. Turning back to the painting, he carefully resealed the letter in its document sleeve and tucked it into his fireproof safe alongside the photographs he'd taken. His phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed Wright Eleanor. "Mr. Bennett, I apologize for calling again so soon," she began, "but I must warn you, Has anyone approached you about the painting yet? Michael's pulse quickened. Why do you ask? Because that painting may be more significant than either of us realized, she replied. I've been researching accounts of organized desertion during the Civil War for years. There have always been rumors of a large-scale plot that was violently suppressed, but never any concrete evidence. How did you know about this particular painting? The auction house owner is my cousin. When he mentioned a Civil War battle scene with unusual details being sold, I asked him to notify me if anyone purchased it. She paused. Mr. Bennett, we should meet immediately. I believe you may be in danger. Despite his reservations, Michael agreed to meet Dr. Wright at a public cafe in 30 minutes. After hiding the painting behind his refrigerator, an old restorer's trick for temporarily storing valuable works, he grabbed the photographs and headed out. The cafe was quiet, with only a few patrons scattered among the tables. Eleanor Wright was easy to spot. Mid-50s, silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun, and the alert posture of a career academic. She rose to greet him, her handshake firm. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I suspect we have much to discuss." Michael sat across from her, including why a man named Hollister just offered me $5,000 for a $75 painting. Eleanor's expression tightened. James Hollister works for the Harrington Foundation. Old money, deeply invested in Civil War memorabilia. Their founder was General William Harrington. The name means nothing to me. General Harrington was responsible for putting down several desertion attempts during the war. He became famous for his ruthless efficiency. She leaned forward. "Mr. Bennett, I need to know. Did you find anything inside the painting?" Michael hesitated, studying her face. After a moment, he reached into his pocket and slid the photographs across the table. Eleanor's eyes widened as she examined them. "My God," she whispered, "it's real. After all these years, actual evidence." "You believe it's authentic?" "The details align perfectly with gaps in the official records." She pointed to the date. 3 entire companies went missing that week. 1 Union, 2 Confederate. Official reports claimed they were wiped out in separate engagements, but no bodies were ever properly accounted for. And General Harrington was in command of that sector at precisely that time. She looked up from the photographs. His descendants have spent generations building his legacy as a military hero. This letter would destroy that narrative completely. Michael glanced around the cafe. "That explains Hollister's offer." $5,000 is just the opening bid," Eleanor warned. "But once they confirm the letter exists, they'll do whatever necessary to obtain it or destroy it. It's historical evidence. They can't just... History is written by the powerful, Mr. Bennett. The Harringtons donate millions to museums, universities, and political campaigns. They've buried unflattering truths before." As if on cue, Michael's phone rang. The caller ID showed Hollister's number. "Don't answer," Eleanor advised. "We need to secure both the painting and the letter immediately. My department at the university has a climate-controlled vault." "I'm not just handing everything over," Michael objected. "I found it. I need to understand what I'm dealing with first." Eleanor nodded. "Fair enough. But at least let me help authenticate the letter properly. And there's something else. The mention of the full account, hidden where the river bends beneath the general's watchful eye. I think I know what that refers to." "You do?" "There's a monument to General Harrington overlooking a bend in the Potomac River. It was erected in 1870 after his death. The painting might be a map to an even more comprehensive account of what happened." Michael considered this. "If we find this full account, what then? Publish it?" "History deserves truth, Mr. Bennett." Eleanor's voice softened. "Those men, 243 of them, were trying to end their part in the bloodshed. Instead, They were executed without trial and erased from history. Don't they deserve to have their story told? Michael's phone rang again. This time the screen showed his home number, but he lived alone. "Someone's in my apartment," he realized with sudden alarm. They rushed back to find Michael's door ajar, his apartment methodically ransacked. The painting was gone from behind the refrigerator, his work table overturned, and his tools scattered across the floor. "The safe," Michael said, hurrying to his bedroom closet. To his relief, the small fireproof box remained locked and undisturbed, hidden beneath a loose floorboard the intruders had missed. "They'll be back when they realize they don't have the letter," Eleanor warned. "We need to leave now," Michael agreed, retrieving the safe. "Where's this monument you mentioned?" "Outside Shepherdstown, West Virginia, about an hour-and-a-half drive." "Then let's go. My car's in the garage downstairs." As they drove out of the city, Eleanor studied the photographs of the map on the back of the letter. The artist was clever. What looks like battlefield terrain actually corresponds to the area around the monument. "See this hill with 3 trees? It's still there, just east of the statue." Why go to such elaborate lengths to hide this story? Michael wondered. The war had been over for years when this was painted. General Harrington lived until 1870. Even after his death, his family remained powerful, and some wounds never healed after the war, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor. Those who survived might have feared retribution if the truth came out. Michael's thoughts turned to the painting itself. They took it, but without the letter, it's just a mediocre battle scene. "Not to the right eyes," Eleanor corrected. To a historian familiar with the rumors, that painting is a signpost. The artist deliberately included identifying details, uniform insignia from specific regiments that reportedly disappeared, geographical markers. That's why the Harrington Foundation wants it destroyed. Night had fallen by the time they reached Shepherdstown. The Harrington Monument stood on a bluff overlooking the Potomac, illuminated by floodlights, a bronze general on horseback, arm outstretched toward the river bend below. "We'll need to come back in daylight to follow the map properly," Eleanor said as they drove past. "There's a motel just outside town where we can—" She stopped mid-sentence. In the parking lot of the small motel ahead, a black sedan identical to the one Hollister had been driving was parked outside the office. "How could they know we'd come here?" Michael asked, driving past without slowing. "They're monitoring my research," Eleanor realized. "I requested documents about this area just last week from the university archives." She pointed to a side road. "There's a bed and breakfast on the other side of town. My sister stayed there once." The elderly proprietor of the Queen's Meadow Bed and Breakfast seemed delighted to have unexpected guests, showing them to separate rooms and insisting they join her for tea despite the late hour. Over chamomile and cookies, Michael studied the photographs while Eleanor reviewed her notes. "We should assume they'll be watching the monument tomorrow," he said quietly. Eleanor nodded. "But they don't know exactly what we're looking for, and neither do we." She pointed to a small mark on the map. "This X is about 200 yards from the monument, near what appears to be a rock formation. If the proportions are accurate, we're looking for something small, possibly buried, after 126 years. Civil War soldiers were remarkably resourceful about preserving important documents. They used everything from beeswax to resin coatings, and that area is mostly limestone, naturally dry soil." Michael looked up from the photographs. "Why are you helping me with this? You could have just reported the letter to your university." Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "My great-great-grandfather was in the 7th Pennsylvania Reserves. Family law says he disappeared during the war, but his body was never recovered." She met Michael's gaze. "His name was William Wright. I've spent my career looking for what happened to him, and now—" "You think he might have been part of this desertion plot?" She nodded. "The dates match. And he wrote to my great-great-grandmother about the senselessness of the fighting in his final letter. She smiled sadly. Perhaps I'm finally close to bringing him home, in a way. Michael understood then that they were both searching for something beyond historical facts. For Eleanor, it was closure for a family mystery. For him, perhaps a purpose beyond merely restoring other people's creations. In his room that night, Michael examined the letter again under his portable magnifier. Something about the final line continued to nag at him. The full account is hidden, where the river bends beneath the general's watchful eye. The phrasing seemed deliberately specific, not buried or concealed, but hidden, as if in plain sight. Hidden in plain sight. Dawn broke over the Potomac River as Michael and Eleanor approached the Harrington Monument from a hiking trail. They had left the bed and breakfast at first light, carrying only a small backpack with tools Eleanor had purchased the previous evening. "There," Eleanor whispered, pointing through the trees. "The monument." The bronze general sat atop his horse on a granite pedestal, his arm gesturing toward the river bend below. More concerning were the two men in dark suits standing near the monument's base. "Harrington Foundation Security," Eleanor murmured. "They're waiting for us." Michael consulted the map photographs. "The X mark is beyond the monument, near that rock outcropping. We'll need to circle around." They retreated deeper into the trees, following a game trail that curved toward the river. "Wait," Eleanor said suddenly. "Look at the statue again, specifically where he's pointing." Michael studied the monument. The general's arm gestured toward the river bend, but the angle seemed deliberate. "It's pointing to a specific spot," he realized. "Exactly. And look at the map. The X isn't marked at the rocks. That's just a reference point. The real location is where this line extends from the hill to the river." They altered their course, moving toward the spot where the Potomac curved in a gentle bend. The bank was steep here, with limestone outcroppings creating natural shelves above the water. The water level would have been different in 1863, Eleanor noted as they searched. "Probably higher in spring." Michael examined the rocky bank. "We're looking for something that would survive more than a century of flooding and weather." They searched for nearly an hour, finding nothing but ordinary rock formations and river debris. The sun climbed higher, and Michael grew increasingly aware that the security team might expand their search area. "This isn't working," he said. "We're missing something." Eleanor stepped back, staring up at the monument on the bluff above them. The general's arm remained fixed in its eternal gesture toward their location. "Hidden where the river bends beneath the general's watchful eye," she repeated. "Not buried or concealed, but hidden." Michael followed her gaze. "What if it's not in the ground or rocks? What if it's in the statue itself?" Eleanor's eyes widened. The monument wasn't built until 1870, 7 years after the events described. "And the painter survived," Michael added. "What if he was involved in creating the monument? A final act of defiance, hiding the truth literally beneath the general's nose." They studied the statue from their vantage point. The security guards remained in position, occasionally speaking into radios. "We can't approach it directly," Eleanor said. "We might not have to." Michael pointed to a maintenance shed near the monument. Older monuments like this usually have documentation, blueprints, maintenance records. If there's something unusual about the statue's construction, it might be noted. The shed was padlocked, but appeared unguarded. They circled back through the woods, approaching from behind, while keeping the building between themselves and the security team. "Cover me," Michael whispered, producing a small set of lockpicks from his pocket. Eleanor raised her eyebrows, and he shrugged. Art restoration involves a lot of antique locks. Inside, the shed contained landscaping equipment and a metal filing cabinet. "Here," Eleanor said, pulling out a folder labeled Harrington Monument, Installation and Maintenance. She spread the contents on a workbench while Michael kept watch. "Look at this," she called softly. "The original installation record from 1870. The statue was cast in 3 sections. Her finger traced a handwritten note in the margin. Hollow interior, reinforced at connection points, sealed compartment in base, as specified." "A sealed compartment," Michael repeated. "That could be it." Eleanor continued scanning. "There's a maintenance record from 1951. They opened the access panel in the base to check the interior supports." "Where exactly is this access panel?" She turned the page to reveal a diagram. Eastern side of the granite base, behind a removable stone panel. Michael checked the window. "The guards are on the western side. If we approach from the woods on the east, we might reach it unnoticed." "And then what? We can't just open a monument in broad daylight." "We don't have to open it. Just confirm if something's inside." Michael found a small inspection mirror on an extendable handle, typically used for examining engine components. They replaced the documents and slipped out, retreating to the woods to plan their approach. "I'll create a diversion," Eleanor suggested. "Pretend to be a lost hiker. Draw them away." "Too risky," Michael objected. "If they recognize you from your university photos, they'll know exactly why we're here." After discussing alternatives, they settled on a simple plan. Eleanor would remain as lookout while Michael approached the monument as an ordinary tourist, timing his inspection for when the guards were distracted. Michael circled around to the main path, adopted a casual posture, and walked openly toward the monument with a tourist map in hand. Other visitors had begun to arrive, providing cover as he wandered the site, seemingly admiring the views, while gradually working his way to the eastern side. When a family with noisy children captured the guards' attention, Michael seized his opportunity. He knelt beside the eastern base as if tying his shoe. Quickly locating the nearly invisible seam of the access panel, he slid the inspection mirror's handle into the narrow gap. The mirror revealed a dark space beyond, and as he adjusted the angle, something reflected the light, a metal container wedged inside the hollow base. He couldn't make out details, but its presence confirmed their theory. A crackling radio made him withdraw the mirror hastily. One of the guards was speaking into his handset, his gaze sweeping the grounds. Michael stood casually and walked away, rejoining Eleanor in the woods minutes later. "There's definitely something inside," he reported. "A metal box or container." "We need a distraction big enough to clear the area," Eleanor said. "Something that would make even security personnel leave temporarily." They hiked back to their car, discussing possibilities. "We could report a medical emergency on one of the trails," Michael suggested. Eleanor shook her head. "They'd send paramedics, but security would stay with the monument." "What about—" Michael began, but stopped as they approached their parked car. A familiar black sedan was parked beside it, and James Hollister leaned against their hood, arms crossed. "Mr. Bennett, Dr. Wright." He nodded to each of them. "I believe we have matters to discuss." 2 more men in suits stood nearby, their posture suggesting concealed weapons. "How did you find us?" Eleanor demanded. "Small towns, curious innkeepers, generous tips," Hollister replied smoothly. "But that's irrelevant now. What matters is reaching an arrangement beneficial to all parties." "I'm not interested in selling," Michael stated flatly. "I'm not here to buy the painting anymore. My employers know you've discovered something far more valuable." Hollister gestured to their car. "Please, join me for a drive. There's someone who wants to meet you." With the suited men watching, they had little choice. Michael and Eleanor slid into the back seat of their own car, with Hollister taking the wheel. The security men followed in their sedan. "Where are you taking us?" Eleanor asked as they drove away. "To Harrington Estate," Hollister replied. "Just outside Shepherdstown. The family has maintained it since before the Civil War." 20 minutes later, They passed through ornate iron gates and up a tree-lined drive to an imposing antebellum mansion. The grounds were immaculate, with formal gardens and a view of the Potomac in the distance. In the mansion's wood-paneled study, an elderly woman awaited them. Despite her advanced age, Margaret Harrington carried herself with rigid posture, her white hair perfectly coiffed, her eyes sharp and assessing. "So," she said without preamble, "you're the ones digging up my grandfather's past." "Great-grandfather," Eleanor corrected automatically. "General William Harrington would be your great-grandfather, given your age." Margaret's mouth tightened. "Precision! How academic of you, Dr. Wright." She turned to Michael. "And you, Mr. Bennett, an art restorer who stumbled into history. Do you understand what you've uncovered?" "A war crime," Michael replied evenly. "The execution of soldiers who wanted to stop fighting." "Desertion during wartime," Margaret countered. "Treason against their respective causes. My great-grandfather maintained order in chaos, preserved discipline when it was most needed." "By murdering hundreds of men without trial," Eleanor challenged. Margaret signaled to Hollister, who placed a folder on the desk between them. "These men abandoned their comrades, betrayed their oaths. General Harrington did what was necessary in a time of national crisis." "History deserves the truth," Eleanor insisted. "History deserves context," Margaret replied sharply. "Those were different times with different values and necessities. Would you judge every historical figure by modern sensibilities? Where would it end?" Michael stepped forward. "There's a first-hand account hidden in the monument base, isn't there? That's what you're truly afraid of." "Legacy of silence." Margaret Harrington's composed expression faltered momentarily, confirming Michael's suspicion. "You've known all along what's in that monument," Eleanor realized. "Your family has been protecting this secret for generations." "My grandfather told me stories passed down from his father about difficult decisions during war," Margaret said. "You mean the execution of men who wanted peace?" Michael asked. "They were soldiers who abandoned their duty," Margaret insisted. "The Union commander who assisted understood this as well." "Union commander?" Eleanor's eyes widened. "Union officers were complicit. War makes for unlikely alliances. Neither side could afford the contagion of desertion. So they worked together to kill their own men," Michael said. Margaret composed herself. "Let me be direct. We'll establish a research grant at your university, $2 million, and for you, Mr. Bennett, a position as our head conservator with a substantial salary." "In exchange?" Eleanor asked. "Turn over the letter, all copies, and any materials you've discovered. Sign non-disclosure agreements." "And the document in the monument?" Michael asked. "Preserved in our private archives," Margaret assured him. "Available to select scholars." "Those men deserve to have their story told," Eleanor insisted. "At what cost?" Margaret challenged. "Consider the descendants who believe their ancestors died honorably in battle. Consider the divisions such revelations might reopen." "What if we decline?" Michael asked. "Then the letter will be exposed as a forgery. Expert testimony will discredit it. Dr. Wright's academic reputation will be ruined, and Mr. Bennett will face charges for fraud." "We'll need time to consider," Eleanor said carefully. "Mr. Hollister will drive you back. We'll expect your answer by tomorrow noon." As they walked to the car, Eleanor subtly slipped something into her pocket, a small brass key with an ornate H engraved on its head. "I recognized it from the photographs," she whispered. "It's the monument maintenance key." "We can't just walk up to the monument in daylight," Michael said. "We'll go tonight," Eleanor replied. They spent the afternoon preparing. As midnight approached, they parked a quarter-mile away and hiked through the woods. When the guards changed shifts, they rushed to the monument. Eleanor inserted the key into the granite panel, revealing a small compartment. Inside was a Civil War-era document case. Eleanor removed it while Michael kept watch. They retreated quickly to their car. The case contained a leather-bound journal and several folded documents. Captain James Whitley of the Confederate Army had documented the Brotherhood of Peace, soldiers from both armies who had grown disillusioned with the war. "We numbered nearly 500 men by March 1863, Eleanor read. "United in recognition of our common humanity, we planned to lay down arms together." One document listed hundreds of names by regiment. Another described how General Harrington and Colonel Chambers agreed that such a movement threatened both armies' morale and must be eliminated without public knowledge. 243 of our brothers arrived early at the meeting point. They were surrounded, disarmed, and executed without trial. Eleanor found her ancestor's name on the list. William Wright, 7th Pennsylvania Reserves. He was trying to end the fighting. By dawn, they had examined all the documents. The evidence was overwhelming. Enemy officers cooperating to conceal a peace movement that threatened their control. They duplicated every document before securing the originals in a bank's safe deposit box. At noon, they met Margaret Harrington again. "We decline your offer," Michael stated. "Then you leave us no choice," Margaret warned. "That would be difficult," Eleanor replied calmly, "considering we've already sent copies of everything to the National Archives, major universities, and several historians." The elderly woman paled. "You found it." "Last night," Michael confirmed. "Captain Whitley's account is quite thorough." "You've destroyed a legacy built over generations," Margaret whispered. "Your great-grandfather destroyed it himself," Eleanor corrected. "We've simply revealed the truth." 1 month later, Michael stood in the National Civil War Museum watching visitors examine the new exhibit, The Brotherhood of Peace, a forgotten chapter. The painting hung prominently, now professionally restored. Beside it were Captain Whitley's journal and the documents from the monument, protected in climate-controlled cases. "Quite a crowd," Eleanor commented, joining him. She had helped curate the exhibit, ensuring the story was told accurately. "They deserve to be remembered," Michael said, "not as deserters, but as men who saw the futility of the bloodshed and tried to stop it." My great-great-grandfather would be proud," Eleanor replied, touching the glass case that held the list of Brotherhood members. "All of them would be." A young historian approached them. "Dr. Wright, Mr. Bennett, sorry to interrupt, but there's a woman here who says her ancestor was part of the Brotherhood. She has letters that might add to our understanding." History keeps revealing itself," Michael smiled, "one truth at a time." As they followed the historian, Michael glanced back at the painting that had started their journey. No longer just a mediocre battle scene, but a deliberate message across time, finally delivered after more than a century of silence. In the corner of the frame, nearly invisible until properly restored, the artist had painted his signature, J. Whitley, with a small symbol beside it, a broken sword crossed with an olive branch. The emblem of the Brotherhood of Peace, hidden in plain sight for generations, waiting for someone to discover the truth.